When we speak of training design, we are first and foremost going back to a long established distinction between different types of training that one has to decide in designing training which way should we go. And this really has to do with whether to train people on the job or whether it's better to move them off the job. However, there's a third type of training that usually is placed first on the list, and that is that we talk about induction training or orientation for people. That's different. It is on the job because it usually will happen as an on-the-job setting, but it's not a kind of training for getting performance up to expected standards. It's rather a way of just welcoming people to an organization and bringing them in. So one has to work hard at the design of all three of these programs, and too often, especially in NGOs, the induction type of training isn't well handled, it's not well prepared, it's not intentional. People are sort of expected to know things after they've been in an organization for 2 or 3 months that nobody ever told them. And so it's an actually good idea to have a little binder that has, maps and codes of conduct and an organogram, anything that will give them an orientation for the organization that they've joined and the way they are. And that's a special kind of program. One of the things that often works there is to have a one-day welcoming period where key people in the organization may book half-hour slots, and that person isn't put to work the first day, but just moves around from desk to desk and from office to office to meet different people and to find out what is going on in this organization and who's who and where's the bathroom and so forth. So induction is a key part of training. And then you have the other two options when you're thinking of designing. Should we be sending people away to training institutes, to training centers, to do courses, possibly even to colleges and so forth? Or is it better rather to do the training in the workplace? And what we're looking at in this topic is really what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of each one of these possibilities. One can immediately see that taking someone off the job means, for example, that they're out of production. And what we see in seminars and workshops and putting people away for 1 or 2 weeks into training is that they're not at their desk, they're not at the machine on the shop floor during that period of time. Whereas if we can adopt, on the other hand, an on-the-job type approach, perhaps we'll find that they're going to remain in production and be contributing to our outcomes even though they're now in a training mode. And so something like coaching or mentoring, it may be that someone could spend an hour a day with someone with more experience going over what they've been doing, looking for the pitfalls, looking for ways to improve performance and so on. And that kind of training may be a totally different approach from sending somebody away. That means that they can still be producing. So that's one of the big issues. Another issue, of course, is whether the transport, the accommodation, and all of those costs for sending people away don't get even more expensive than the training itself. And it may be that what we need to look at is a kind of training that can come in where, for example, for a seminar, if you need to send 15 people away to a seminar to learn something new, that's going to be pretty expensive on the terms of travel and accommodation. But bringing one trainer in, perhaps even from another country, for a week, that will only be one person who you have to buy the airfare and pay the hotel bills for and so on. So we're always trying to balance what's the best way to go with on the job and off the job. I think one thing is worthy of noting, that in training, one is not only looking at the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of skills, the idea being, the head, the knowledge, and the hands, the skills, but we're also thinking about the heart. And what we've learned in training is that if you need to change people's attitudes, if you really want to shake people off of certain biases in the way they think and do things, one really needs to move to off-the-job training. Because it's very difficult in the place where you always are and where you've been for a long time to actually change your attitudes. You may be able to acquire extra skills, you may be able to know more from training in the on-the-job setting. But if people need attitudinal change, it's probably a better option to send them away to another place where they're with other people from other organizations in an inter-organizational setting instead of an intra-organizational setting, and that's often better in that respect. And so training design begins with this issue. Which way are we going to go? Are we going to do it in-house, or are we going to move to another venue? And remembering that orientation or induction training is also a special kind of training in its own right.